The air in the arena was thick with ash and the metallic scent of fresh blood. Kaelen stood at the center, his massive steel armor now jagged and stained crimson, not just from his enemies, but from the brutal magic that had been torn into his own flesh. They called him the Gyarados Empire's finest, a warrior whose loyalty was as unbreakable as his resolve. They also called him a monster now. His eyes, once a clear hazel, glowed a frightening, uncontrollable red. Lightning, a crackling, unstable energy, danced along the edges of his greatsword, a gift and a curse imposed by the very people he had sworn to serve. Look at it, General. The ultimate weapon. A human body, powered by ancient elemental blood, controlled by our chains, sneered General Theron from the viewing platform, a smug smile plastered across his face. Kaelen roared, a sound more beast than man, and swung his sword, obliterating the practice dummies, the ones they called traitors, that were placed before him. He was a prisoner in a cage of his own making, his mind a constant, echoing void of pain and fury. He remembered the day of the betrayal. It wasn't a sudden ambush, it was a carefully orchestrated maneuver by the Supreme Council and General Theron. They had discovered his lineage, that rare, powerful bloodline capable of wielding raw lightning, and decided to weaponize it, draining his essence and forcing a dark, unpredictable magic into his core. They hadn't just experimented on him. They had murdered the man he was. Suddenly the ground shook. Not from Kaelen's power, but from an external force. Sirens wailed, piercing the silence of the fortress. The vampires. The damned creatures of Aetheria are attacking. Now, Kaelen, show them what a true monster looks like. Unleash the power we gave you. Theron's voice boomed over the speakers. Kaelen felt the chains in his mind snap. The void filled with a single clear thought: vengeance. He didn't care who he had to kill, only that he would destroy the Empire's plans. But for now their enemies were his enemies. He burst through the fortress gates, meeting the charging vampire army. They were pale, swift, and armed with archaic silver weapons. But they were no match for the raw, unstable power crackling around him. He was a whirlwind of steel and thunder. Vampire soldiers fell one after another. Kaelen saw no faces, only targets. He felt no remorse, only the exhilarating rush of his newfound, terrifying power. The battle raged into the ruined outskirts of Aetheria, the Vampire Kingdom. Kaelen, following Theron's mental commands, cut deep into their defenses. And then he saw her. Standing atop a crumbling parapet, silhouetted against the dark, swirling clouds, was the Vampire Queen, Seraphina. She was breathtakingly regal, even amidst the carnage. Her hair was stark white, catching the faint, eerie light. She wore a deep crimson gown and black, feathered wings that looked both beautiful and menacing. She didn't look like a feral beast, but a fallen monarch determined to protect her dwindling people. Seraphina didn't flee. She descended, gliding with an unnatural grace, her eyes, a striking amber, fixed solely on Kaelen. Warrior, her voice was a chilling silk, cutting through the battlefield noise. You wreak havoc in our streets, but I smell the stench of forced servitude on you. The chains of your creators are clearer than your blood. Kaelen didn't answer. He lunged, his greatsword a blur of electric blue. This was the final hurdle. Take the queen and the Empire wins. Seraphina was faster than anything he had fought. She didn't block his sword, she ducked under it, her movements a mesmerizing dance. She didn't carry a sword, only two long razor-sharp daggers. She didn't aim for his armor, which was impervious. She aimed for the seams, the weak points where the Empire's dark magic had integrated the lightning power into his body. The daggers struck the armor seams on his right shoulder and left thigh. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, like being submerged in pure acid. He collapsed, his lightning energy short-circuiting and dying down. He expected her to deliver the killing blow, to sever his head and parade it to her retreating soldiers. Instead, Seraphina stood over him, her expression a mix of pity and cold resolve. She looked past his red eyes and mangled armor, seeing the tortured human beneath. Aetheria has few allies left, warrior, she whispered, kneeling and placing a cold hand on his burning cheek. But our enemies are the same. Your people have betrayed you. Let us see if you are truly the monster they forged or the weapon they discarded. Her guards moved in, not to kill but to shackle him with thick, enchanted chains. Kaelen, weakened and stunned, was dragged into the heart of the kingdom he was sent to destroy. He was a monster, captured by the Queen of Vampires. But the chains holding him now felt different, not of forced servitude but of a strange, chilling opportunity. The air in the Aetherian dungeons was a stark contrast to the burning battlefield. It was cold, silent, and smelled faintly of damp stone and a millennium of forgotten souls. The chains that bound Kaelen now were not the crude steel of the Gyarados Empire, but an intricately carved metal infused with vampire-warding magic. They didn't hurt him. They merely suppressed the chaotic, uncontrollable lightning that had become his identity. He sat on the cold floor, his massive, blood-caked armor scraping against the ancient stone. The red glow in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by a dull, aching exhaustion. He was a war machine that had run out of fuel. He was not afraid of the vampires. He was afraid of the empty shell he had become. A metallic click echoed down the long corridor. The guards outside his cell, tall, emotionless vampires in black plate, snapped to attention. Then she entered. Seraphina. The vampire queen. She wore a simple, elegant black velvet robe now, the fierce crimson of the battlefield replaced by the somber color of mourning. Her white hair was braided, and her face, usually sharp and guarded, carried the deep fatigue of a monarch struggling to hold her broken kingdom together. Her eyes, the mesmerizing amber, were focused on him, but not with hatred. With clinical curiosity. The guards hesitated, but Seraphina waved them back with a single imperious gesture of her hand. "They call you the monster," she said, her voice softer than it had been on the parapet, but still carrying the weight of command. She approached the bars of his cell, seemingly unafraid of the behemoth sitting on the other side. Kaelen didn't look up. "That is what my masters made me." "Your masters are the ones who turned you into a caged beast," Seraphina countered, her tone tightening with contempt. "I watched your battle, warrior. You fought with fury, but your aim was sporadic. You were a cannon, fired without care, not a calculated blade. They didn't trust you to think. They only trusted you to destroy." He finally lifted his head, meeting her gaze. His red eyes, still tinged with the forced magic, flared momentarily. "And you, your majesty? You captured me. Are you not just waiting for the right moment to perform your own experiment? To find out how to replicate this weapon for Aetheria?" Seraphina tilted her head slightly, a small, weary smile touching her lips. "If I wanted to study you, I would have drained your blood on the battlefield, not risked the lives of my loyal guard to bring you here. No, warrior. I brought you here because I saw something in your eyes." She stepped closer, placing a gloved hand on the cold bars. "I saw betrayal. I saw a soul that had been stolen. And I know betrayal, Kaelen. I have tasted it in the halls of my own palace." Seraphina then gave a gesture, and one of the guards silently approached, placing a tray of untouched food and a crystal goblet of water near the cell. "Aetheria is falling," she admitted, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Not just because of the Gyarados Empire's armies, but because of the rot within. Our elders are complacent, our forces are spread thin, and my own council doubts my judgment daily." She looked away towards the distant high window of the dungeon, where a sliver of the moon was visible. "Your masters, Theron and the Supreme Council, they plan to burn this entire valley, vampire and human alike, to take control of the ancient sunstone that lies beneath Aetheria. They don't want a kingdom, they want a source of unlimited power. And you, Kaelen, are merely their initial breach mechanism. And what do you want from me?" Kaelen's voice was hoarse. The food was tempting, but the water in the Vampire Kingdom felt suspicious. "I want the impossible," Seraphina stated, turning back, her amber eyes blazing with renewed hope. "I want to offer you a deal." She looked him directly in the eye. "I will break the chains of their dark magic. I will use the ancient knowledge of Aetheria's healers to restore your humanity. It will be a slow, painful process, but you will be free of the monster they forced you to become." Kaelen stared, momentarily stunned. "And the price?" "The price is simple. Loyalty," she said, the word ringing with authority. "You will stand as my shield. You will use the strength they cursed you with to fight the very people who betrayed you. You will become the protector of Aetheria." He laughed, a dry, grating sound. A human protecting a vampire kingdom? Against his own race? "They will never stop calling me a monster." "The whispers of the common folk are irrelevant," Seraphina retorted sharply. "What matters is what you call yourself. Your people broke you. My people, however broken, can heal you. You serve me and in return you regain your soul. You regain your freedom." Kaelen slowly rose to his feet. The chains rattled, but the lightning did not crackle. He walked to the bars, his immense, battered figure towering over the queen. "If I accept," he began, his red eyes boring into hers, "I will not be bound by your laws of war. I will fight the Empire's armies, yes. But I will not raise my sword against the innocent human civilians or the resistance fighters who may be acting on false information from the Empire. They are victims just like me. That's my condition. You must guarantee their safety." Seraphina looked him over, measuring his sincerity. It was a condition that could easily sabotage her kingdom's defense, but it was also a condition that proved he was still a man of principle. A genuine smile, the first Kaelen had seen, briefly touched her face. A principled monster. I can work with that, warrior. I will not seek to harm the innocent, only those who seek to destroy both our kinds. Your condition is accepted. But you must swear your allegiance to me, and to Aetheria, until the threat of the Empire is eliminated. I swear it, Kaelen confirmed, his voice firm, the commitment a heavy but necessary stone in his chest. He reached through the bars, his hand, bruised and scarred, met the queen's gloved hand. The exchange was not of a prisoner and a captor, but of two desperate monarchs forging an improbable alliance. Seraphina gave a curt nod. Good. You are no longer a prisoner, Kaelen. You are my royal protector. The council will oppose this. The elders will scheme. But I will not yield. We start your training tomorrow. I need you strong and I need you controlled. As Seraphina turned to leave, the silence in the dungeon returned. Kaelen looked at the crystal goblet, then at the untouched food. He picked up the water, looked at his own reflection in the liquid, a stranger with red eyes, and finally took a drink. He was in the Vampire Kingdom. He had a new master. But for the first time since the betrayal, the path to his redemption was clear. He was fighting for his soul, and strangely, for the survival of the queen who saw the man beneath the monster. The Aetherian High Council chamber was a place of oppressive, cold grandeur. Red banners depicting the crest of Seraphina's house, a stylized, winged serpent, hung from the tall columns. Kaelen stood in the center, his newly cleaned but still battle-scarred armor clashing loudly with the chamber's silence. He was surrounded by the Supreme Council of Elders, their faces etched with ancient disapproval. The most imposing among them was Darius, Seraphina's high elder and uncle. His features were sharp, his eyes a chilling blue, and his posture radiated disdain. You have dragged a human savage, a weapon of our enemies, into our sacred halls, Regent Seraphina, Darius's voice resonated, dripping with practiced authority. This creature ravaged our border defenses only yesterday. It is not a candidate for a royal protector. It is a subject for immediate execution. Seraphina, seated on the shadowed, imposing blood throne, remained perfectly composed. She wore her crown, a thin band of woven silver, like a declaration of war. Elder Darius, you mistake a discarded weapon for its wielder, she replied, her voice steady and clear. The Garridos Empire forged Kaelen, but they do not control him. His allegiance is now bound by an oath, a mutual pact of survival. His expertise in their tactics is our most valuable asset. Another elder, an aged female named Lyra, scoffed. An oath to a human is a passing whisper, Regent. They are volatile, short-lived, and driven by base emotions. You risk all of Aetheria's defenses on the whim of a beast. Kaelen finally spoke, his deep voice cutting through the aristocratic venom. I am many things, Elder, but base is not one of them. I carry the scars of the Empire's betrayal. Their destruction is my only goal. My loyalty is to the Queen who offered me a chance to reclaim my soul, something your council seems content to let rot in self-pity. Kaelen's defiance enraged Darius. The elder rose from his seat, his cloak sweeping around him. Brave words for a prisoner, monster, Darius sneered, making the title a poisoned dart. But courage is meaningless without power in service to Aetheria. If you are to be our protector, you must prove your worth against one of our own. I, Elder Darius, challenge this human for the rank of royal protector. A gasp swept through the council. A challenge from a high elder was rare and carried significant weight. Darius was not only a skilled fighter but possessed formidable vampire magic. Seraphina's hand gripped the armrest of her throne. The challenge is noted, Elder. But Kaelen is not yet accustomed to the controlled use of his power, which was forcefully altered by the Empire. I will not allow a duel until he can fight without destroying the very ground we stand on. She turned to Kaelen, her eyes issuing a silent command for restraint. Kaelen, you will be officially instated as my royal protector under the condition that you demonstrate control over your lightning power within 7 days. Until then you will undergo intensive training under my personal guidance. Darius's lips thinned. He had been denied his immediate victory, but the 7-day deadline was his new weapon. Very well, Regent. 7 days. Let us see if this savage can master a power that nearly tore him apart. Later that evening, Seraphina led Kaelen away from the council, not to the training grounds, but to a hidden library deep beneath the palace. As they walked through the endless corridors, Kaelen noticed the chipped carvings, the hastily repaired walls, and the pervasive sense of decay that the grandeur couldn't hide. Your council is fragile, your majesty, Kaelen observed. They fear me because they fear change. They fear losing the little power they cling to, Seraphina corrected, leading him into a vast room filled with glowing, ancient texts. They believe the old ways will save us. I know only a revolution will. She showed him a mural depicting the fall of Aetheria. It wasn't the humans who defeated the vampires initially, it was internal strife, a thirst for power that led to the ancestral curse and the creation of the wings she bore. The ancestors stole power and it warped their very beings, Seraphina said, touching the mural. Our immortality, our strength, it's all rooted in a profound act of selfishness. My people carry that guilt. They blame themselves for the Empire's aggression, believing it is divine retribution. I carry the burden of convincing them that we are not cursed but simply broken. Kaelen realized the depth of her sacrifice. She was not just fighting the Empire, she was fighting the nihilism of her own people. You are fighting alone, your majesty, he said, the respect in his voice growing. Not anymore, she looked at him, a flicker of warmth in her amber eyes. Now we train. You must learn to control the power before Darius forces you into a duel. He knows you cannot survive in this state. The next morning, Kaelen stood in the Grand Training Nexus, a massive cavern with reinforced, rune-inscribed walls designed to absorb chaotic magic. Seraphina stood opposite him, dressed in light, flexible leather armor. Your power is elemental lightning, Kaelen, Seraphina explained. The Empire used dark sorcery to hijack it and force it through your emotional responses. We need to detach the power from the rage. Kaelen, wielding his greatsword, felt the familiar, dangerous thrum of energy. How do I control chaos? You don't control it, you guide it, she instructed. Strike me. Do not hold back but aim to land a blow without letting the current break free. Kaelen charged, his immense strength sending the stone beneath his feet trembling. He swung the massive sword at Seraphina's flank. She moved with impossible speed, her body a blur as she deflected the blade with a single, slender forearm guard. Faster, she commanded. Kaelen struck again, forcing more power. The sword sparked blue but the current was contained. But the rage was not. You must be quicker than their spells, Kaelen. Seraphina shouted, pushing him back with a burst of wind magic. Frustration, fueled by the Empire's implanted rage, surged. With a guttural roar, Kaelen unleashed the lightning. It burst from his armor, arcing violently. The blue energy struck the rune-inscribed walls, causing an explosion that sent dust and debris flying. The raw force almost shattered the protective runes. Seraphina was thrown back, landing hard. She rose, her face grim. That is the monster, she hissed. Uncontrolled, destructive, and blind. Kaelen froze, the lightning receding painfully back into his body. He looked at the smoking walls, then at Seraphina's hurt expression. I can't, he muttered, ashamed. The anger, it always wins. Seraphina approached him slowly, her movements measured. She didn't scold him. She did the unexpected. She placed her hand, cool and steady, on his bloody armor where the lightning usually erupted. No, Kaelen. The anger is the Empire's leash, she said softly, her amber eyes gazing into his red ones. But I can see the man who controls it. We will fight the leash, not the power. We will connect the lightning not to the rage but to the focus. Think of your oath, Kaelen. Think of the freedom you swore to reclaim. Let that be the anchor for your power. She stepped back, her voice ringing with finality. Now draw the lightning. But this time let it be cold and precise. Let it be the Protector's power, not the monster's. Kaelen closed his eyes. He didn't think of destruction. He thought of the deal. He thought of the fragile queen standing alone against the world. He drew the power, not with a roar but with a deep, silent breath. When he opened his eyes, the lightning was not a chaotic blue explosion. It was a precise, intense white-hot current, contained entirely on his greatsword, humming with controlled purpose. He had passed the first test. The monster was learning. Seraphina had dedicated a secluded chamber near the royal archives as Kaelen's temporary study. The room was lined with ancient maps and sealed scrolls, smelling of dry parchment and old cedar. Kaelen stood over a massive, illuminated holographic projection of the known world, its borders currently dominated by the sprawling crimson shadow of the Gyarados Empire. They are not just conquering, Kaelen, Seraphina said, tracing the Empire's shifting borders with a slender finger. They are consuming. Every conquered territory yields a resource, a magical artifact, or, most recently, a new scientific abomination. They don't fight to rule, they fight to harvest. Kaelen focused on the map, his gaze sharp. They are shifting their eastern forces. That's unusual. Theron always favored a central assault. Exactly, Seraphina confirmed, turning to a small hidden chest she'd retrieved from the archive. The general's tactics have changed since they upgraded their weaponry. I believe the key to understanding this shift lies in understanding you. She opened the chest, revealing not jewelry, but a selection of dark, arcane texts and diagrams. The centerpiece was a tarnished copper breastplate, nearly identical in shape to Kaelen's own. Your armor is a prison, Kaelen, Seraphina explained. The metal itself is a powerful conductor of magical energies. The Empire's sorcerers didn't just infuse lightning power into your body, they created a circuit. Your emotional center is the power regulator, the armor is the conduit, and the forced red glow in your eyes is the slave sigil. Kaelen ran a gauntlet finger over the cold metal of the breastplate, a wave of sickening understanding washing over him. The constant, gnawing rage wasn't his, it was an energy signature, a leash. I was a key, Kaelen whispered, the realization hitting him hard. A key to unlock a power source they couldn't access. Seraphina nodded sadly. Your ancient elemental lineage, the source of the lightning, is a raw, pure power the vampires learned to respect and the Empire feared. They couldn't copy it. They had to enslave it. They injected a powerful dark serum, designed to trigger your rage instantly, forcing your lightning to erupt uncontrollably. When you lose control, the armor absorbs the overload, keeping you alive but reinforcing the sigil. The white-hot lightning. The focus, Kaelen realized, remembering his training with Seraphina. When I focus on my promise, on my soul, I break the circuit and the power stabilizes. Precisely. My healer believes that if you can maintain the white-hot control, we can slowly use a cleansing ritual to burn out the dark sigil entirely. It's a risk. If you lose control during the ritual, the lightning could incinerate you. As they discussed the dangerous healing process, a small tremor shook the chamber. It was subtle, localized, and coming from the west, the direction of the human resistance territory. Seraphina's face hardened. That wasn't the Empire. That was a localized magical pulse. A strong one. Kaelen's military instincts flared. He looked back at the holographic map. The western border is where the human resistance operates. If the Empire finds a way to turn them into their pawns, the war is lost. Seraphina agreed. They mounted a surveillance mission to the western ruins, moving under the cloak of Aetheria's night. Seraphina moved with the silent, gliding grace of her kind, her black wings folded tightly against her back. Kaelen, despite his size, had been trained in stealth by the Empire, and moved with a heavy, purposeful quiet. They arrived at the ruins of an old, stone monastery. Kaelen sensed the lightning magic immediately. It felt familiar but distorted. It felt like fear. Peeking over a crumbling wall, Kaelen saw them, a group of human fighters clad in mismatched, scavenged armor, surrounding a glowing, unstable device. The device was pulsing with weak, erratic lightning. Leading the group was a woman with sharp, determined features and eyes that were fiercely focused on the task. She was smaller than Kaelen, but radiated a raw, desperate authority. Kaelen's breath hitched. He knew that face. He knew that defiant set of the jaw, the long, practical braid of dark hair. Elara, he whispered, a name that felt like a rusty knife twisting in his memory. Elara was his former comrade, his closest friend, and once, the fierce woman he loved before the Empire had taken him. He remembered her accusing face during his capture, her tearful conviction that he was a traitor, a monster who willingly sold his soul. She was clearly now the leader of the Western human resistance. The device they were building was an energy disruptor, designed to cause chaos and disable vampire magic in a localized area. But it was unstable, and the faint, familiar lightning coursing through it was being used recklessly. One of the human engineers stumbled, and the disruptor flared violently. Elara shoved the engineer out of the way, taking the full brunt of the magical feedback. She collapsed, clutching her arm. Kaelen instinctively moved, but Seraphina grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Do not reveal yourself," she commanded in a low hiss. "She is a fighter, not a civilian. If she sees you here with me, she will see only the monster and the vampire queen, and she will attack. She is my friend Seraphina." "She is hurt," Kaelen argued, the red glow returning to his eyes, the anger at his helplessness rising. "And she is building a weapon that could kill us both and destabilize the balance we need to fight the Empire." Seraphina's voice was firm. "The Empire will use her desperation. They will feed her lies about Aetheria, just as they fed her lies about you." Kaelen watched Elara struggle to her feet, her face pale with pain and resolve. He watched her rally her troops, her belief in the necessity of her cause absolute. She was fighting the tyranny of vampires, but she was a pawn in the Empire's grand strategy. Seraphina pulled Kaelen back into the shadows. We have seen what we needed. They are not our enemies yet, Kaelen, but they are highly susceptible to becoming the Empire's unwitting allies. We must protect them from the Empire's manipulation, even if it means keeping your true self hidden from Alara for now. Kaelen looked back at the ruins, his heart heavy with a complex, agonizing conflict. He was the protector of the vampires, yet he was bound by an oath to protect the human innocence, which included Alara, even if she believed he was the enemy. He was the monster bound by two loyalties. The lines of the war were getting blurry, and his past was staring him down. The alarm sirens began their eerie high-pitched wail just after the midday sun had dipped below the highest spire of Aetheria. It was not a massive invasion, it was a probing attack, a deliberate test of the Vampire Kingdom's response speed and the strength of the new royal protector. Kaelen was instantly in motion, his greatsword already in hand. The white lightning, now a trusted extension of his will, hummed quietly around the blade. He moved alongside Seraphina and a small contingent of her most loyal guards, their armor slick black against his battered, dark steel. The Empire is targeting the Eastern Gate, the oldest and weakest point, Seraphina stated as they rushed through the winding staircases. They know about the structural integrity. This is Theron's handiwork, tactical and cruel. Theron is testing the integrity of the deal you made, Your Majesty, Kaelen corrected grimly. He wants to see if I will break under fire or if I will break his forces. As they reached the ramparts overlooking the Eastern Gate, the siege was already underway. Garrido's Empire soldiers, clad in dull gray armor, were scaling the walls with grappling hooks and siege ladders. They were led by a towering figure in blood-red armor, a general known only as Gurus, the Ironheart. Kaelen froze. The red armor, the heavy battle axe, the familiar aggressive stance. Gurus wasn't just a general. He was Kaelen's former second-in-command, a man who had sworn an eternal brotherhood oath with him years ago. They had faced countless battles together, bled side by side and trusted each other with their lives. Gurus, Kaelen breathed, the name thick with painful disbelief. He had always suspected Gurus was part of the conspiracy, but seeing him lead the assault drove the final nail into his loyalty to the Empire. You know him? Seraphina asked, observing the large general cutting down her soldiers with ruthless efficiency. He was my brother-in-arms, Kaelen replied, his voice devoid of emotion, the red returning faintly to his eyes, fighting against the white control. He helped them build the cage I sit in. Then you know his weakness, Seraphina commanded, her voice cutting through his pain. Do not seek revenge, seek victory. He is a distraction meant to break your focus. Kaelen nodded, and then, with a roar that was neither entirely human nor entirely monstrous, he vaulted over the rampart, plummeting 20 feet to the ground just inside the gate. The impact shook the stone. He met Gurus in the center of the inner courtyard. The battle around them instantly paused, the soldiers from both sides stepping back to watch the duel between the former comrades. Kaelen. Gurus's voice boomed, laced with genuine heartbroken rage. They told me you were turned into a savage. That the vampires corrupted your mind. But standing there with that pale queen, you are worse than a savage, you are a traitor. I am a man who woke up to the sound of his allies driving a knife into his back, Gurus, Kaelen retorted, his voice low and dangerous. Theron betrayed us both. He turned me into this. He will turn you into something worse. What? She twisted your mind with her blood magic. Gurus bellowed, charging with his axe raised high. The clash of steel was deafening. Gurus was pure brute force, his every strike aimed to crush Kaelen's armor and break the fragile control he held. Kaelen was faster, more agile, guided by the precise surgical control Seraphina had taught him. He blocked the massive axe, the white lightning on his greatsword sparking fiercely against Gurus's weapon. Kaelen knew he couldn't kill Gurus. Not only because of his oath to Seraphina against unnecessary killing, but because he couldn't entirely sever the ghost of their brotherhood. But he had to neutralize him. He had to prove his loyalty was permanent. Seraphina watched from above, her expression a mixture of worry and fierce determination. She used her own magic, a quick burst of arcane energy, to distract the Empire's archers who were targeting Kaelen. Gurus finally managed to land a solid blow, a sweeping strike that found a weak point on Kaelen's side. The impact sent Kaelen skidding backward, his breath knocked out of him. The red glow in his eyes surged, threatening to break his control. Rage. Unleash the power. Destroy him. The Empire's magic whispered in his mind. Kaelen fought back, focusing on the Queen's face, on the memory of her hand resting on his burning armor. He steadied himself. He did not let the lightning explode. Instead, he channeled the white energy into a single, devastating thrust. He didn't aim for Gurus's heart. He aimed for the general's armored shoulder joint, the point of maximum mobility. The great sword plunged deep, the lightning current instantly short-circuiting Gurus's nervous system. The general cried out, the pain overwhelming. His heavy axe clattered to the ground, his arm rendered temporarily useless. Kaelen pulled the sword out cleanly. He stood over his defeated former friend, his red eyes now stabilized back to the focused white light. You live, Gurus, Kaelen said, his voice flat. But you will return to Theron with a message. I am not his weapon. I am the royal protector. With their leader neutralized, the remaining Empire soldiers panicked and retreated through the gate. The battle was over. Silence fell, broken only by the cheers of the Aetherian guards. Kaelen looked up at Seraphina. She didn't cheer. She simply gave him a small, fierce nod of approval, her amber eyes conveying a clear message. You chose your path. The victory was immediate and decisive. But as Kaelen stood amidst the kneeling vampire guards and the retreating enemy, he felt a profound, aching loss. He had secured his new loyalty, but at the cost of severing the last meaningful tie to his old life. In the glow of the setting sun, Seraphina descended and approached Kaelen. She didn't speak of the battle. She spoke of the future. The council is silenced for now, she said, placing a gentle hand on his uninjured arm. You proved your power and your restraint. But this is only the beginning, Kaelen. Your heart is now free of the Empire's fear, but it is now bound by mine. She led him away from the gate, toward the sanctuary of the palace, leaving the Empire's fallen general to be collected by his retreating troops. Kaelen followed her, the monster fully accepted, the man fully committed. The victory at the eastern gate had bought Seraphina temporary peace from the High Council. Darius was silent, but his cold gaze followed Kaelen like a shadow. Kaelen knew the elder was merely recalculating his strategy, not conceding defeat. Seraphina did not celebrate the victory publicly. Instead, she asked Kaelen to join her under the deepest cover of night. She did not lead him to the war room or the archives. She led him through a secret tunnel, concealed behind a waterfall in the palace gardens, into a space he had never seen, the Aetherian Cradle of Whispers. The cradle was not a grand ruin but a small, natural cave, its walls slick with moisture and lined with glowing, moss-like flora that cast an ethereal blue light. In the center was a pool of still, mirror-like water that reflected the night sky visible through a narrow crevice far above. This is where the first High Regents came when they needed absolute truth, Seraphina explained, her voice echoing softly. She shed her heavy velvet cloak, revealing the subtle contours of her armor beneath. She looked fragile yet formidable in the blue light. Why bring me here, your majesty? Kaelen asked, his heavy armor feeling too loud and clumsy in the sanctuary. Seraphina approached the pool, her reflection staring back at her. The white hair, the fierce amber eyes, and the shadow of the massive, folded black wings on her back. Because you need to understand the true nature of the queen you serve, she said. You think the Empire is our greatest threat. They are not. Our greatest threat is the curse my ancestors accepted, and the distrust it bred. She spoke of the ancient past, centuries before the Gyarados Empire rose to dominance. Her ancestors were powerful elementalists, much like Kaelen's lineage, who desired immortality and supremacy over the human world. They made a pact with a primordial dark entity, exchanging their pure life force for eternal life and strength. The pact was a trap. The immortality came with a price. The thirst for blood, the sensitivity to sunlight, and the wings, she whispered, touching one of the great black feathers. These wings are not a symbol of strength, Kaelen. They are the shackles of our ambition. They are a physical reminder of the day my house sold our souls and became the creatures humans came to fear. Seraphina was revealing her deepest shame, the fundamental weakness of her rule. Kaelen realized why the elders feared change. They believed the curse defined them. Darius and the others, Seraphina continued, her voice heavy with grief, they cling to the curse. They see themselves as apex predators. I see myself as a monarch burdened by the ultimate act of selfishness. I cannot trust them because they would gladly sacrifice the common good, vampire or human, to preserve this flawed power. Kaelen listened in silence, the truth of her confession washing away the remnants of his initial contempt for her kind. He saw not a queen, but a solitary figure drowning in the past's immense shadow. He slowly moved towards her, his movements careful and deliberate. He stopped beside the pool, and the white light from his controlled lightning mixed with the blue moss light. Your ancestors were selfish, Kaelen conceded. But you are not. You are risking everything, your throne, your life, your kingdom, on a monster who wears the sigil of your greatest enemy. That is not selfishness, your majesty. That is hope. She looked at him, surprised by the gentle strength in his voice. Hope is dangerous, Kaelen. It makes us vulnerable. It makes us human, Kaelen countered. I know the emptiness of the Empire's betrayal. I know what it feels like to have your identity stolen. You are not defined by your wings, Seraphina. You are defined by the fight you lead against the curse, against the tyranny. He reached out, his gauntlet hand hovering near her face. He did not touch her, respecting the profound gap between them. Seraphina closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. In this moment the titles, Queen, Protector, Monster, Vampire, faded. There was only Kaelen, the betrayed warrior, and Seraphina, the burdened monarch. They were two broken halves of a shield. When she opened her eyes, the professional distance was gone, replaced by a deep, undeniable connection. Darius knows the Empire is our enemy, Seraphina said, turning the conversation to the immediate threat. But he despises the idea of an alliance with a human, even a weapon like you. He is watching us, Kaelen. He sees our trust and he will use it as a weapon against my rule. He is plotting to depose me using your presence as the excuse. She took a step closer to him, the gap narrowing. I need your loyalty to remain absolute, Kaelen. Not just in battle but in the court. If he tries to remove me, Aetheria falls instantly. And if Aetheria falls, the Empire takes the Sunstone, and the entire world burns. Kaelen placed his hand gently on her shoulder, the first true deliberate touch between them outside of combat. His armor felt cold, but his presence was a surprising warmth. My oath is my anchor, Seraphina, Kaelen promised, his red eyes soft but resolute. I swore allegiance to the queen who offered me my freedom. I will stand as your shield in the court and on the battlefield. Let Darius plot. We will be ready for him. The moment hung, charged with unspoken intensity. The bond between them had deepened into something far beyond a military alliance. It was a mutual dependence, a nascent, dangerous love forged in the crucible of war and shared betrayal. They left the cradle of whispers before dawn, Seraphina feeling lighter, Kaelen feeling the heavy but necessary weight of an honest purpose. They were ready for Darius. The accusation hit Aetheria like a thunderbolt, carefully orchestrated and timed by Elder Darius. It came during the nightly changing of the guards, a moment of routine vulnerability. Kaelen, the royal protector, was accused of attempting to assassinate Queen Seraphina. The supposed evidence was damning. A small, concealed vial of concentrated sun poison, a deadly human-made toxin capable of crippling any vampire, found meticulously hidden in Kaelen's private quarters, placed right beneath his greatsword stand. The High Council trial was convened before the sun could set, Darius moving with swift, judicial authority. Kaelen was brought to the chamber not in his armor but in heavy iron manacles, his raw strength subdued. He met Seraphina's amber eyes. She was seated on the throne, her expression unreadable, betraying no panic, only a formidable resolve. The evidence is clear, Regent, Darius announced, holding the vial aloft for the council to see. This substance is human in origin, and its potency is undeniable. The human claims loyalty, yet harbors the means of your destruction. It is the very definition of a traitorous monster. Kaelen stood silent, focusing the white-hot control in his mind, refusing to let the Empire's residual rage take over. The vial was planted, Elder. My loyalty is to the Queen and her cause. A convenient lie, sneered Elder Lyra. You are a creature of the Empire. They placed you here to open the gates, either by force or by assassination. The moment you became an inconvenience to them, they provided you with the means to finish your initial mission. The council was swayed. They feared the Empire, and they feared the human now standing shackled before them. They were ready for a verdict. Seraphina raised her hand, silencing the murmurs. Elder Darius, the evidence is compelling but the logic is flawed. If the Empire intended Kaelen to be my assassin, why would they risk a public trial that forces us to examine their methods? If he was a simple, mindless tool, they would have ensured the deed was done cleanly and quickly. Perhaps, Regent, the human became too attached to your cause, forcing them to activate the secondary method. Darius countered smoothly, twisting her trust into a weakness. Either way, his presence is a threat to the bloodline. He turned to the council. I move for the immediate removal of Kaelen's protective status and his immediate execution. This is the only way to restore faith in the monarchy. The moment was critical. The council was poised to vote against Kaelen and, by extension, against Seraphina's judgment. Then Seraphina did the unimaginable. She rose from the blood throne, breaking the ancient vampire law which decreed the monarch must remain seated until the verdict. She descended the steps, leaving the shadows of the throne, her crown blazing in the dim light. She walked directly to Kaelen, her gown sweeping the floor, and stopped inches from his shackled form. "Elder Darius," she declared, her voice ringing with clear, cold authority, "you speak of logic. I speak of truth." She looked Kaelen in the eye, ignoring the stunned gasps of the elders. She reached out and touched his cheek, her hand resting exactly where the dark magic scarring was most prevalent. The white light in Kaelen's eyes intensified. The Empire did not create Kaelen merely to be an assassin. They created him to be a disruptor. They gave him a dark sigil to command his rage. But they also gave him an anchor, a profound core humanity that fights back, Seraphina stated, her voice thick with emotion and conviction. "This is not a trial about a poisoned vial. This is a trial about the pact we made. Kaelen swore to protect the innocent. He swore to reclaim his soul. And I swore to heal him. To execute him now is to admit that the Empire's magic is stronger than the will of the monarchy. It is to admit that we are incapable of redemption." She turned to Darius, her amber eyes blazing with challenge. "You claim he is a traitor. I claim he is the only honest ally this council has ever encountered. The Empire would want us to destroy him. By executing him, we do their work for them." Seraphina then performed the ultimate act of defiance. She took Kaelen's shackled hand. "I am not just the regent who hired a protector, Elder. I am the monarch who pledged to heal a wounded man. He is under my personal protection. The trial is dismissed. Kaelen remains the royal protector. I will not yield to panic, nor to the Empire's psychological warfare." Darius was furious, his composure finally cracking. "You violate the sacred law. You risk your life for a human. I risk my life for Aetheria's future, which requires a shield of conviction, not fear," Seraphina shot back. "And to prove the loyalty of my protector, Kaelen and I will immediately embark on a high-risk mission into enemy territory, a mission that only a human who knows the Empire's secrets can achieve. If we return, his innocence is proven. If we do not, you will have your verdict." The council, stunned by the Queen's power move, could not object. Seraphina had bypassed the judicial process by replacing it with a strategic necessity. She had risked everything, her authority and her life, to save Kaelen. Minutes later, back in her private chambers, Seraphina was already changing into her stealth gear. Kaelen, now unshackled and back in his armor, stared at her in awe. "You risked too much, Seraphina," he said, his voice husky. "You broke the law for me." "Law is meaningless if it ensures our destruction," she replied, not looking at him. "And I did not break it for you, Kaelen. I broke it for us. Darius would have used your execution as the foundation to challenge my throne. You are my greatest defense and my greatest strength. I will not surrender either to a political schemer." She finally turned, her amber eyes meeting his red. The intensity between them was undeniable. She hadn't confessed love, but she had certainly confessed absolute faith. "Now we leave," she commanded. "Darius is expecting us to flee. Instead, we strike at the heart of the Empire's conspiracy, their secret military base where they are preparing their full invasion." "And the human resistance?" Kaelen asked, remembering Ilara and her lightning-powered device. "We find the Empire's plans and we find a way to warn them," Seraphina confirmed, pulling the hood of her cloak over her white hair. "It's time to show Darius and Theron that the monster and the fallen queen are not targets to be hunted, but hunters." The night was their shield. Kaelen and Seraphina moved swiftly through the forests bordering the Gyarados Empire's territory, the thick canopy muffling their movements. Seraphina used her innate vampiric agility, moving with a silent, almost liquid grace. Kaelen, despite his heavy armor, matched her pace, the controlled white lightning on his greatsword providing just enough illumination to navigate the treacherous, uneven terrain. Their destination was a recently established temporary outpost the Empire was using to coordinate the next phase of its invasion, a site Kaelen knew from his days as General Theron's elite operative. "The Empire always uses the cover of abandoned industrial zones," Kaelen muttered, pointing towards a derelict factory chimney barely visible through the mist. "They move the Sunstone research there after every successful skirmish. It's their strategic hub. Then that is where we find their full invasion plan and, more importantly, the details about the Sunstone and your magic," Seraphina replied, her voice a low murmur. Her black wings were fully extended now, blending seamlessly with the night. She was using them to glide silently over the highest obstacles. They breached the perimeter easily, Kaelen disabling the archaic human sensors with a surge of controlled electricity. The outpost was bustling with activity, armored soldiers, engineers, and supply carts. They needed to reach the command center at the core. As they moved through a dimly lit warehouse, Seraphina abruptly pressed herself against a stack of crates, pulling Kaelen down beside her. "Hold," she whispered, her amber eyes narrowed. "We are not alone. And it is not the Empire." From the shadows emerged a small group of figures. They were the human resistance, scruffy, determined, and heavily armed with salvaged weapons. Leading them was Elara, her face smudged with dirt, her movements driven by a desperate, frantic energy. Kaelen felt a painful punch in his gut. Elara was here, deep behind enemy lines, putting herself and her entire cell in lethal danger. "They are moving the supplies to Sector Gamma," Elara instructed her group, her voice low but firm. "We hit the communications array first. We stopped them from broadcasting their lies." As the resistance group moved past their hiding spot, one of Elara's men stumbled, knocking over a stack of empty metal barrels. The clatter echoed loudly through the warehouse. Instantly the entire Empire outpost went on high alert. Sirens blared and armored soldiers streamed towards the sound. "We have to go," Seraphina hissed, preparing to engage the Empire soldiers. "No, wait," Kaelen commanded, gripping her arm. "They're trapped. If we engage the Empire, we expose Elara's group. If they're captured, the Empire will torture the location of the main resistance base out of them." He made a split-second decision that defied every command he had been given. "I need you to create a diversion," Kaelen instructed Seraphina. "A massive, visible strike on the other side of the compound. Make them think a vampire legion has arrived." Seraphina hesitated, her eyes flickering between the trapped humans and the command center. "If I leave you, the Empire will identify you, Kaelen. And if Elara sees you with me, she will shoot first." "She already thinks I'm a monster and a traitor," Kaelen said bitterly. "Let her believe it for a while longer. My oath is to protect the innocents. Go. Now." With a reluctant nod, Seraphina spread her black wings and launched herself into the air, a silent, powerful blur. Moments later, a massive explosion of arcane energy erupted near the eastern wall, distracting every Empire soldier and sending them scrambling away from the warehouse. Kaelen seized the moment. He moved silently towards Elara's group, which was huddled in terrified confusion. "Now." Kaelen's deep, booming voice was a terrifying sound in the chaos. Elara spun around, her face registering shock, then fury. She aimed her rifle directly at Kaelen's chest, the massive, monster-like figure, his armor scarred and his eyes flickering red in the frantic confusion. "Kaelen, you animal. You're with them." Elara cried out, her voice raw with betrayal. "You wear that armor and fight for the bloodsuckers. Traitor." "I'm not fighting for them, Elara. I'm fighting for you." Kaelen roared, his voice desperate to convey the truth she refused to see. He knew there was no time for explanation. As an Empire patrol rounded the corner, Kaelen acted. He raised his greatsword and deliberately swung it, not at Elara, but at the support pillar beside her. The white lightning erupted, striking the stone with controlled force, causing the entire warehouse section to collapse between Kaelen and the resistance group. Elara and her team were shielded from the Empire soldiers by the immediate destruction, but they were also separated from Kaelen. "Go, Elara. Get out of here. The command center is undefended on the south side. Go to the command center." Kaelen yelled, giving her the only piece of critical information he could. Elara stared at the smoking wreckage, then at Kaelen, her face a mask of confused fury. Why would he destroy their escape route only to give them the location of the command center? The monster was a contradiction. Before she could process the impossible information, Kaelen was gone, charging deeper into the chaos to meet the pursuing Empire soldiers and buy Seraphina time to complete their objective. He was caught between his past and his present, between the woman who loved him and the woman who saved him. He had exposed himself, risking his mission and his life, but he had protected Elara. He finally rendezvoused with Seraphina near the command center. She had engaged a small group of high-ranking officers, her movements a mesmerizing dance of death, her wings a blur of black shadows. "Did you secure them?" Seraphina asked, her voice breathless, her daggers dripping silver. "They escaped. I gave them a diversion," Kaelen replied, taking up his position to shield her. "And the location of the command center. We need to move before Elara's group realizes they were led here." They entered the command center, finding the main holographic table still active. It projected a complete, horrifying plan. The Empire wasn't just planning an invasion, they were planning a simultaneous global detonation. The Empire was preparing to use the Sunstone not just to conquer, but to trigger a worldwide elemental feedback loop, destabilizing all natural magic and crushing all resistance under a catastrophic magical storm. Kaelen realized the true, terrifying scale of his original mission. He was to be the power source for the first detonation. The Empire had created a monster, but the monster was now the only thing standing in the way of global extinction. The command center was a whirlwind of frantic, half-destroyed projections when Seraphina and Kaelen finally paused, panting, amidst the wreckage they'd wrought. The immediate threat of the Empire's patrol was gone, distracted by the ongoing commotion near the collapsed warehouse. Seraphina was focused on the holographic map, her mind already analyzing the invasion plan. Kaelen, leaning heavily on his greatsword, was grappling with the crushing weight of Alara's scorn. "You should not have exposed yourself," Seraphina stated, her voice tight with professional anger. "You risked the entire mission for a sentimental gesture." She saw a monster fighting alongside the enemy. "You have only solidified her hatred." "She is fighting for the right cause, Seraphina, human freedom," Kaelen argued, his own exhaustion making him sharp. "She just has the wrong target. I had to ensure she survived, and I had to give her the truth about the command center. If the human resistance gets the Empire's plan, we have allies." Seraphina sighed, running a hand through her hair. "And if Darius learns that you handed strategic information to the human resistance, he will use it to tear down my throne. You live by my protection, Kaelen. Do not make my sacrifice meaningless." The tension between them was a volatile thing, built on conflicting loyalties and the immense pressure of their mutual desperation. She turned back to the map. "Forget the local skirmishes. Look at this." The core of the Empire's plan glowed terrifyingly on the table, the Sun Stone. It was not just a power source, it was a complex arcane device linked directly to a global magical network. "They intend to overload the world's magic," Kaelen realized, tracing the complex energy diagrams. "Not a weapon for conquest, but a weapon for obliteration." Seraphina confirmed grimly. "The Empire discovered that pure elemental magic, like the lightning they forced into you, can be used as a catalyst. The Sunstone will trigger a planetary-scale feedback loop, overloading the ley lines. All magic, vampire or elemental, will be turned against the users. The world will be consumed by magical firestorms, leaving only the Empire's non-magical, heavily armored forces standing." Kaelen understood then the true nature of the monster he had become. The lightning in his body was not just an engine, it was a time bomb intended to start the chain reaction. "They were going to detonate me," Kaelen whispered, the horror of his betrayal finally hitting its peak. "I was never meant to be a permanent weapon. I was the fuse for the end of the world." Seraphina approached him, her stern facade finally crumbling. She saw the profound existential pain in his eyes, the realization that his very being was designed for universal genocide. "And that is why you must survive," she said softly, reaching out and gently touching his scarred armor near his heart. "They designed you for destruction. We will redefine you for salvation. The energy you contain is the purest force on this planet. It is the only thing capable of stabilizing the feedback loop when the Empire tries to ignite it." Kaelen looked at her, his red eyes searching her amber ones. She was not the cold queen. She was the woman who had risked her kingdom, her life, and her reputation for his redemption. "You are not a monster, Kaelen," she whispered, her voice husky. "The monster is what they fear. The hero is the man who wields the power with human restraint." "I see the man, Kaelen. I always have." The air crackled, not with destructive lightning, but with a pure, white energy of shared necessity and deep affection. Kaelen dropped his greatsword, letting the heavy weapon clatter to the metal floor. He reached up, his scarred hands gently cupping Seraphina's face. He pulled her close, the movement sudden and desperate, bridging the enormous, impossible gulf between the human warrior and the vampire queen. "If I am to be your shield," Kaelen murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "let this be the anchor that guides the light." Seraphina didn't pull away. She leaned into his touch, her cool skin a stark contrast to the burning heat of his body. The kiss was not passionate, it was an oath, a commitment forged in the face of annihilation. It was the purest expression of trust between two leaders who knew their alliance was the only hope for their respective worlds. As they pulled apart, the white light in Kaelen's eyes was steady and bright, the red completely gone. The internal war was over. He was no longer the monster controlled by rage. He was Kaelen, the protector anchored by love. Suddenly, a massive surge of arcane power rippled through the compound. "They're coming," Seraphina said, her voice instantly back to command level. "They detected us. We have to secure the data and escape." They quickly copied the essential Empire data onto a small encrypted crystal. As they prepared to exit, Seraphina's eyes caught a glint of movement near the perimeter. "We have company," she said, her daggers ready. "And it's not the Empire." A patrol of Aetherian vampire guards, clad in the sigil of Darius, entered the command center. Leading them was a minor elder, his face smug with success. Regent Seraphina, the elder announced, a sneer on his face. Elder Darius anticipated your escape. He knew you would follow your traitorous human. You are both under arrest for high treason and alliance with the human resistance. Kaelen, your time as the protector is over. Seraphina and Kaelen were cornered, trapped deep behind enemy lines, not by the enemy but by the rot within their own kingdom. The true battle for Aetheria was about to begin. The small, dark patrol of Aetherian guards, led by Elder Torian, formed a tight, inescapable circle around Kaelen and Seraphina. Outside the ruined command center, the sirens of the Gyarados Empire were beginning to retreat, the diversion having served its purpose, for the Empire and for Darius. Elder Darius sends his regards, Regent Torian sneered, a flicker of dark satisfaction in his eyes. He regrets that your ill-advised pursuit of a human has forced his hand. You are both charged with treason and aiding the enemy. Treason? Seraphina's voice was sharp, cutting through the smugness. We are here securing evidence of a global annihilation plot. Darius is not defending Aetheria. He is acting on panic and self-interest. Darius is acting with foresight, Torian corrected, raising his enchanted blade. He anticipated this foolish excursion. He knew you would risk everything for a sentiment, and he prepared the final evidence of your incompetence. Now surrender the Empire's data crystal. Kaelen stepped forward, placing himself squarely between Seraphina and the guards. His greatsword was instantly charged with controlled white lightning, the hum a fierce warning. You are making a grave mistake, Elder, Kaelen warned, his voice low and dangerous. The Empire will use Darius's greed to destroy this kingdom. Step aside. The monster still tries to lecture us, Torian laughed, a harsh sound. It seems a public demonstration of Darius's wisdom is necessary. Just as the skirmish was about to erupt, a new voice echoed from the shadows of the warehouse entrance, a voice thick with authority and venom. Hold, Torian. Let the traitors witness the truth for themselves. General Theron of the Gyarados Empire strode into the scene, clad in ceremonial crimson armor, completely unconcerned by the Aetherian guards. He was followed by a small unit of elite, armored Empire soldiers. Seraphina and Kaelen exchanged a stunned glance. The Empire general was meeting with the Aetherian guards openly. Theron, Seraphina hissed, instantly realizing the depth of the conspiracy. Theron gave a mock bow. Regent Seraphina. Or should I say former regent. Your uncle sends his apologies for not attending the unveiling. He is busy securing your throne. He turned to the vampire guards, his voice carrying the deceptive tone of an ally. Your elder Darius has ensured your safety and Aetheria's sovereignty. Our treaty is now ratified. In exchange for the Sunstone and the complete suppression of the region's reformist policies, the Gyarados Empire will recognize Darius as the supreme ruler of Aetheria. Elder Torian and his guards looked stunned, then deeply conflicted. They had thought they were carrying out a necessary arrest. They were actually witnessing their leader's ultimate betrayal. Torian, stand down. Seraphina commanded, using her full regal authority. Darius has sold you to the Empire. This alliance is a lie. He will hand over the power that will consume the entire world. Theron smiled, an ugly, predatory expression. Your queen lies, vampire. She sought to ally with the wretched human resistance, a move that would have plunged you into endless war. Darius chose peace and stability. He then looked directly at Kaelen, his eyes alight with malicious triumph. And you, monster. You were so easily convinced you were free. We used your trial, your escape, and your sentimental attachment to your human whore, Elara, to flush the regent out of her palace. You were always our key. Thank you for delivering her to our temporary allies. The final lie, Theron's revelation that they knew about Elara and had used Kaelen's attachment, was the ultimate psychological blow. Kaelen felt a rush of blinding, agonizing fury. The white light of control was overwhelmed. A terrifying, uncontrolled wave of red lightning burst from his armor, shattering the Empire's data crystal in his hand and vaporizing the ground beneath his feet. You will burn. Kaelen roared, no longer the protector but the monster fully unleashed. The sudden, raw power of the blast bought them precious seconds. Torian and the Aetherian guards recoiled in terror. Theron's elite unit raised their shields. Run, Seraphina. Now. Kaelen commanded, turning the full fury of his unstable power on Theron. Seraphina did not hesitate. The revelation had been her wake-up call. The kingdom was lost to betrayal. She grabbed Kaelen's arm, her strength bolstered by a desperate surge of magic, and pulled him towards the warehouse exit. No, Kaelen. We fight another day. She yelled, knowing if he stayed, the uncontrolled power would kill him and destroy the Sunstone evidence forever. They burst out of the command center under a hail of fire. Kaelen, his body struggling against the terrifying overload of his lightning, created a massive shield of chaotic blue energy. Seraphina spread her black wings and dragged him, flying low and hard, away from the Empire outpost. Theron and Darius's loyalists could not pursue them without risking a full-scale battle, which would expose the fragile nature of their new alliance. They let the two figures, the monstrous warrior and the disgraced queen, escape into the deep, unforgiving forest. Seraphina flew until her wings ached and Kaelen's energy finally dimmed to a dangerous flicker. They collapsed deep within the human border territory, hours away from Aetheria. Kaelen lay on the cold earth, breathing heavily, the remnants of the red lightning slowly receding. He had failed. Aetheria was under the control of a traitor, and the Sunstone was about to fall into the Empire's hands. He was once again a hunted exile. Seraphina knelt beside him, her face grim but resolute. She pulled the last remaining piece of evidence, a charred fragment of the data crystal, from his ruined gauntlet. "We have lost the throne, Kaelen," Seraphina said, her voice devoid of despair. "But we have the truth and we have the alliance we need." She looked towards the dense forest where the human resistance was rumored to be hiding. "Darius and Theron believe we are powerless, a hunted queen and a broken monster. They are wrong. Now we turn to your friend, Elara, and the resistance. We were trapped behind enemy lines, now we are the resistance leaders. It's time to build an army." They were fugitives, stripped of title and authority, but unified by a desperate, shared purpose. Part 2 was over. The journey of the monster and the queen was now a desperate race for survival and war. Seraphina and Kaelen traveled under the cover of the dense, mist-shrouded forests of the neutral zone, the disputed borderland between Aetheria and the human kingdoms. They were exhausted, stripped of their titles, but carrying the most dangerous secret in the world, the Empire's plan for global magical annihilation. "We need the human resistance," Kaelen, Seraphina repeated, her voice raw. "They are the only non-magical, organized force capable of launching a coordinated strike against the Empire's core bases without being instantly tracked by Darius's magic. But they will never trust a vampire queen. They will trust Elara," Kaelen stated, his own energy slowly recovering. The violent red lightning had receded, but the white-hot power felt more integrated, sharper, after the confrontation with Theron. "I have to find her. I have to make her see the truth." They reached a secluded clearing known as the Silent Ring, a place Kaelen remembered from his training days, a rumored meeting point for anti-Empire forces. As they approached, Kaelen immediately detected the faint, familiar scent of wood smoke and organized defense. Suddenly, a dozen arrows, tipped with silver, snapped out of the tree line and embedded themselves inches from Seraphina's feet. "Stop right there, bloodsuckers." Elara's voice was harsh, amplified by a metallic cone. She emerged from the trees, flanked by her most trusted soldiers. Her eyes, filled with desperation and fury, were locked on Kaelen. "Monster. I should have known you would lead the queen directly to our camp," Elara spat, her rifle aimed steadily at Kaelen's head. "You destroyed the warehouse to cover your retreat, not to save us. You're a pawn, Kaelen. A decorated pet for the vampires." Kaelen stepped away from Seraphina, his hands raised in surrender, his greatsword deliberately resting on the ground. "I am a man who was betrayed, Elara," Kaelen said, letting his voice carry his deep sincerity. "And so were you. The Empire led you to that outpost to be captured. Theron knew you would build that disruptor and he was preparing to turn it, and you, into another weapon against Aetheria." "Lies." Elara shouted, tears of rage brimming in her eyes. "Vampire lies. She turned you. She enslaved you." Seraphina stepped forward, ignoring the silver arrows. "I have no need to enslave Kaelen. I need his trust and he has mine. Your anger is justified, Elara, but it is misplaced. Elder Darius has seized my throne and forged an alliance with General Theron. They plan to use the Sunstone to trigger a magical apocalypse that will annihilate both our races." Seraphina threw the charred fragment of the data crystal, the only proof they had, onto the ground between them. "That is a piece of the Empire's core plan. Kaelen and I risked our lives and our kingdom to retrieve it. You are fighting for your world, Elara. We are here to help you save it." Elara looked at the crystal, then at Kaelen. Her face contorted with a horrific internal conflict. She wanted to believe her former comrade was still the man she knew, but the monster in his armor, standing with the vampire queen, was a devastating contradiction. "How do I know this isn't a ploy to draw us into a war with Aetheria's traitors?" Elara demanded, her voice shaking. Kaelen walked slowly towards the glowing fragment. Because I am the Sunstone's fuse, Elara. The lightning they forced into me is the pure catalyst needed to destabilize the planet's magic. Theron created me to be the first detonation. If I fall into his hands, the world dies. I am here to offer you the only chance we have. He stood over the fragment, then closed his eyes, drawing upon the deepest, purest core of his power. He didn't seek the rage. He sought the focus, the anchor of his oath to Seraphina. With a silent, powerful exhale, Kaelen unleashed his magic. It wasn't the chaotic red or the contained white. It was a terrifying, brilliant golden light, a pure, elemental energy that enveloped his entire body. His armor glowed, his eyes shone with a clear, controlled power, and the air around him felt intensely charged, yet perfectly stable. This was the full transformation, the human spirit reclaiming the elemental power, becoming a true force of nature, no longer a monster but a god of thunder. The sight was overwhelming. Elara's soldiers gasped, lowering their bows. Even Seraphina stared, her amber eyes wide with awe at the magnificent, terrible power she had helped unleash. Kaelen opened his eyes, the golden light radiating calm authority. I am not controlled by rage, Elara. I am controlled by will. I offer this power to your resistance. Help us secure the Sunstone and reverse the Empire's ritual, and I will use this power to ensure a future where both humans and vampires can live in peace. Elara finally lowered her rifle. She looked at the Golden Warrior, her former love, the man she thought was lost, and saw the unwavering truth in the pure, elemental light. You risked your throne for him, Elara said, turning to Seraphina, realizing the immense scope of the Queen's sacrifice. I risked everything for the truth, Seraphina replied simply. And now we fight for survival. Elara nodded, her defiance finally replaced by a grim determination. She walked forward and picked up the charred crystal fragment. The Empire has a massive weapons depot in the northern peaks, Elara revealed, her voice ringing with resolve. It's their main staging area for the final assault. If we can unite the human resistance groups, we can hit them there, cripple their supply lines, and draw Darius's forces out of Aetheria. But we need to move now. The alliance was forged. The monster, reborn as a god, stood with the fallen queen and the fierce human resistance leader. The final war for Aetheria and the world was about to begin. The combined forces, Kaelen's golden might, Seraphina's arcane strategy, and Elara's organized resistance, converged upon the northern peaks weapons depot. The air was electric, thick with the smell of pine and impending conflict. The attack was a brutal, orchestrated dance. Elara's human resistance, moving with guerrilla precision, struck first, targeting the Empire's communication and supply lines. They used their small arms and explosives to cripple the logistics, creating chaos and drawing out the main bulk of the Gyarados Empire's armored divisions. Seraphina, leading the loyalist vampire faction she had rallied through secret channels, used powerful blood magic and dark illusions to sow confusion, making the Empire's forces believe they were under attack by an entire Aetherian legion. Her black wings were a terrifying blur in the twilight, a signal of defiance and royal might. The main objective, however, was Kaelen. He charged into the heart of the depot, a figure of pure, terrifying elemental power. His armor glowed with a brilliant golden light, no longer the flickering red or white, but a stable, intense aura of controlled energy. The monster was gone, the god of thunder had arrived. He met the Empire's main general, a massive, enhanced soldier, in a spectacular duel. Kaelen's great sword, crackling with golden lightning, cut through the general's advanced armor as if it were parchment. He fought with the surgical precision of a warrior, guided by the ethical restraint of a hero. He didn't just destroy, he neutralized, targeting energy cores and joint armor, proving that control was superior to raw rage. Meanwhile, back in Aetheria, Elder Darius was informed of the massive attack. He realized Seraphina and Kaelen were not fleeing, they were organizing. He knew the true threat was Kaelen's uncontrolled power, which could destabilize the Sunstone. Darius pulled his vampire army out of Aetheria, marching them towards the northern peaks to intercept the Queen and the monster before they could expose his deal with the Empire. The battle escalated from a raid to a full-scale war. The northern peaks became the battlefield where the fate of the three factions, the Empire, Darius's traitor vampires, and the Alliance, Seraphina, Kaelen, and Elara, would be decided. Darius arrived with his loyalist vampires, clad in the silver and black of Aetheria, but fighting for the wrong side. He found General Theron losing ground quickly to the unexpected ferocity of Kaelen's golden power. "Theron, you fool. Where is your protection? The monster is out of control. Darius shrieked, landing near the Empire's command tent. He is not out of control. He is evolving. Theron roared back, clutching a bleeding arm. Your alliance is failing, Darius. Your monster has become a god. We need to activate the Sunstone now or we lose everything. Darius, seeing his carefully constructed power falling apart, ordered his vampire army to attack Seraphina's forces and Ilara's resistance first. He was trying to eliminate the Queen and the witnesses before he dealt with Kaelen. Ilara and her resistance fighters suddenly found themselves battling not only the Empire but also the traitor vampires, their traditional enemy, now fighting under the banner of betrayal. Ilara, however, rallied her troops with a fierce cry. They are all the Empire's slaves. Ilara yelled, firing her rifle with deadly accuracy. Fight for your homes. Fight for the man who saved us. The chaos reached its climax as Seraphina and Darius met face to face on the battlefield. You have doomed us all, uncle. Seraphina shouted, deflecting Darius's arcane blast with her own enhanced magic. I have secured power, foolish girl. Your sentimental alliance with that human will be your end. Darius screamed, unleashing a wave of dark energy. Seraphina fought fiercely, fueled by the rage of betrayal and the determination to reclaim her kingdom. But Darius was older, his magic more entrenched. He managed to land a powerful strike, sending Seraphina reeling back, her black wings momentarily paralyzed by the dark magic. Seeing the queen fall, Kaelen, who had just cleared the main depot, let out a roar of absolute rage and focused power. The golden light intensified, becoming a blinding beacon in the chaotic night. He charged through the battlefield, ignoring the smaller skirmishes, heading directly for the two figures. Darius, seeing the immense, unstoppable power of the Golden Warrior, knew his only chance was to eliminate the source of Kaelen's focus, Seraphina. Kaelen intercepted Darius's killing blow just in time. The clash of Kaelen's golden lightning and Darius's dark magic sent a shockwave across the entire battlefield, staggering every soldier. The full-scale war had become the ultimate duel. Kaelen was fighting not for a title, but for the life of the woman he loved, and the future of all life. The shockwave from the clash of magic and lightning ripped through the northern peaks, leaving a smoking crater where Kaelen had intercepted Darius's attack on Seraphina. Seraphina lay on the ground, wounded but conscious, her eyes fixed on the spectacle unfolding before her. Kaelen stood, a figure of brilliant golden light, his greatsword now a blade of solidified pure energy. Across from him, Darius rose, his face contorted by fury and absolute desperation. The High Elder was fighting not for Aetheria, but for the dark power he craved. You are nothing but an animal, Kaelen. Darius shrieked, unleashing a volley of dark, crushing magic. A fool who trades his power for a queen's pity. You think you are a hero? You are a monster wearing a false crown of light. You belong to the Empire, chained and subservient. Kaelen met the attack head-on, deflecting the dark magic with a sweep of his golden sword. I was a slave, Kaelen roared back, his voice amplified by the elemental power. I am now free. And freedom means I choose my fight. The final duel was a brutal spectacle. Darius used cunning, ancient vampire magic, creating illusions and summoning dark, ephemeral beasts. Kaelen countered with raw, controlled elemental force, the golden lightning burning through Darius's defenses. Kaelen finally cornered Darius against a jagged rock face, his greatsword pressed against the Elder's throat. The power of the golden light radiated outwards, threatening to disintegrate Darius entirely. This is over, Darius, Kaelen stated, his voice calm, the perfect proof of his control. Kill me, monster. Prove your savage nature. Darius challenged, a desperate, final plea to validate his own prejudice. Kaelen hesitated. He looked at Seraphina, who was slowly pushing herself up, her face resolute. He looked at the chaos of the battlefield, Ilara's resistance fighting Darius's men, the Empire soldiers scrambling to regain formation. Killing Darius would be the end of the treachery, but it would be a return to the monster's rage. With a final, profound exertion of his will, Kaelen withdrew the golden sword, dropping the powerful weapon to the ground. He had won the duel, but he refused the execution. I will not dirty my hands with your blood, Kaelen said, his voice ringing with victory. You will be judged by the queen you betrayed, not by the monster you sought to create. But the battle was not truly over. As Kaelen turned to help Seraphina, General Theron, watching from a distance, saw his opportunity. He knew he couldn't defeat the Golden Warrior, but he could still win the war. Theron and his engineers, seizing the moment of distraction, sprinted towards the main objective hidden beneath the depot, the Sunstone. The monster has stalled. Execute the failsafe. Theron commanded, reaching the massive, glowing artifact. Activate the elemental detonation. We sacrifice the northern peaks to win the world. The Sunstone began to hum with a terrifying, rapid acceleration, pulling chaotic magical energy from the ley lines. The sky above turned an ominous, swirling black and red. The global annihilation protocol was initiated. Kaelen instinctively knew what was happening. His body, the intended fuse, throbbed violently, and he felt the planet's magic violently rejecting the Empire's interference. The Sunstone. It's active. Kaelen roared, charging towards the depot. Seraphina, weak from the dark magic, understood the ultimate danger. If Kaelen, the catalyst, touched the stone while it was in detonation mode, the resultant explosion would vaporize the continent. He had to be shielded. With a desperate cry, Seraphina flew towards the Sunstone, her black wings a final, sweeping shield. She didn't have the strength to destroy the stone, but she had the magic to disrupt the feedback loop long enough for Kaelen to get a clear shot at Theron. Seraphina hit the Sunstone just as Theron was about to input the final sequence. Her raw blood magic slammed into the Empire's arcane technology, causing a localized surge. Theron. Kaelen's roar was thunderous. He channeled the full pure golden light of his power into one final focused blast, aimed not at the Sunstone but at the General. The golden lightning struck Theron instantly, vaporizing the General and the Empire's command structure in a flash of blinding light. The main threat was eliminated, but the Sunstone was still active, spiraling out of control. Kaelen raced to Seraphina, who was slumped against the stone, her wings singed, her energy nearly depleted. He touched her, and the golden light surged into the Sunstone, a calming, controlled force fighting the Empire's chaotic energy. He poured his soul, his focus, his humanity, everything he had reclaimed, into the stone. Slowly, agonizingly, the terrifying red glow of the Sunstone receded. The swirling vortex in the sky stabilized. The threat was over. Kaelen collapsed beside Seraphina, his golden light fading back into his armor. He was exhausted but alive. Seraphina turned to him, her amber eyes filled with gratitude, and simply took his scarred, gauntlet hand. The surrounding battlefield fell silent. Darius's remaining forces threw down their arms in surrender. Ilara and her resistance fighters emerged from the chaos, alongside Seraphina's loyalists. They witnessed the final tableau, the human warrior, battered and bleeding, his face visible through the ruined helmet, holding the hand of the exhausted queen. Kaelen was covered in blood, but he was standing. Seraphina was safe, her grip on his hand a testament to their bond. And all around them, the warriors, vampire and human, were slowly sinking to their knees, not in fear but in recognition. The monster had saved them all. The silence that descended upon the northern peaks was heavier than the preceding chaos. It was the silence of exhausted relief, a silence that signaled not just the end of a battle, but the end of a long, dark era. Darius lay shackled and defeated, his dark magic subdued by the simple ancient vampire runes Seraphina's loyalists used to bind him. General Theron and the Empire's command structure were annihilated, the Sunstone stabilized and rendered inert by Kaelen's final, controlled surge of golden elemental power. The monster lay depleted, his ruined armor smoking, his face pale beneath the grime. But the red eyes were gone, replaced by his natural clear hazel, now brightened by the residual golden energy. He was finally truly Kaelen. Seraphina, though severely weakened, rose slowly, leaning on Kaelen's immense figure for support. Her gaze swept over the unified forces, Ilara and the human resistance, standing shoulder to shoulder with the vampire loyalists. The traditional animosity was replaced by a shared, profound respect born of mutual survival. "The war is over," Seraphina announced, her voice weak but carrying the undeniable authority of a true queen. "The Empire's invasion has been crippled, and the conspiracy within Aetheria has been exposed." Darius snarled from his restraints. "You have allied with savage humans. You have destroyed the purity of Aetheria. You are a disgrace to the bloodline." Seraphina ignored him, turning to Kaelen. "The Supreme Council accused you of treason. The Empire called you a monster. But you stood as the shield for both our worlds. You are not a traitor, Kaelen. You are our savior." She then turned to Ilara, whose face was a mixture of awe and dawning guilt. "Leader Ilara, you fought with unmatched courage. The Empire used your righteous anger, but you turned their strategy against them. We owe you a debt of eternal gratitude." Ilara stepped forward, looking first at the defeated Darius, then at the exhausted Kaelen. She finally understood the agonizing choice he had made in the warehouse. He saved us, Elara admitted, her voice thick. He gave us the information we needed even when I called him a traitor. I owe you an apology, Kaelen. I let my fear of the vampires blind me to the man you were. Kaelen simply nodded, the reconciliation unspoken but deeply felt. The first act of the unified alliance was to secure the Sunstone, transporting it back to Aetheria under the combined guard of human and vampire soldiers. Seraphina, Kaelen, and Elara rode together back toward the city, planning the political resolution. Upon their arrival, the remaining, terrified High Council immediately convened. Darius was formally stripped of all rank and authority. Seraphina, supported by the testimony of Kaelen and Elara, was unanimously reinstated as the rightful queen of Aetheria. Seraphina's first decree was revolutionary. She established the Treaty of the Twin Spire, an official pact of non-aggression and mutual defense between Aetheria, the Vampire Kingdom, and the human Free States, led by Elara. This act formally dismantled the centuries of fear and suspicion that had fueled the Empire's rise. Then came the recognition of the man who stood beside her. In a solemn ceremony before the assembled council and the representatives of the human resistance, Seraphina stood by the throne, Kaelen by her side, no longer shackled, but armored in the light of his own truth. They called him a monster, Seraphina declared, her voice ringing throughout the chamber. They used his power for destruction. But he reclaimed his soul and turned that destructive force into the shield that saved us all. By the law of Aetheria, and by the right of conquest over betrayal, I hereby bestow upon Kaelen the title of the Royal Protector of the Twin Spire. The new title elevated him far beyond a simple guard. It made him the official ambassador and guardian of the new alliance, a figure of authority in both the human and vampire worlds. His red eyes, the symbol of the monster, were now replaced by his hazel eyes, the symbol of the hero. Kaelen accepted the title with a low bow to the queen. His redemption was complete. He had lost his past identity but gained an eternal, new purpose. Later that evening, in the quiet solitude of her private garden, Seraphina found Kaelen gazing up at the twin spires of the city, no longer a fugitive but the co-architect of its future. You are a hero, Kaelen, Seraphina whispered, approaching him. I am the man you saved, Seraphina, he replied, turning to her. You saw past the monster and gave me the strength to fight for the man I was supposed to be. He was no longer just the royal protector. He was the king of her heart. The hardest battle, the battle for trust and acceptance, was over. The city of Aetheria was slowly, painstakingly rebuilding. The scars of betrayal and war were visible, but the atmosphere was fundamentally different. The shadows that once hung heavy with ancient prejudice were lifted by the steady, golden light of hope. The treaty with the human resistance, formalized in the Treaty of the Twin Spire, had opened the borders, replacing fear with cautious commerce and shared defense. Elara, now the official envoy for the human Free States, often visited Aetheria, not to plot, but to coordinate security and development. She and Kaelen shared a quiet, enduring respect, a bond of history that had found peace, not passion. She had found her own purpose in building a safe future for her people. Darius and the remaining treacherous elders were permanently exiled, stripped of their power and influence, their legacy a cautionary tale against self-interest and darkness. Kaelen's official duties as the royal protector of the Twin Spire were rigorous. He oversaw the unified defense force, trained both human and vampire soldiers in combined tactics, and worked tirelessly to ensure the Sunstone remained a benign, dormant artifact. He was a creature of two worlds, a powerful bridge where there had once been only a chasm. His appearance had fully transformed. The severe, battle-scarred Empire armor was replaced by a suit of dark, flexible steel, accented with gold filigree, a tribute to his ultimate, pure power. The red eyes were completely gone. The golden light now only appeared when he actively summoned his elemental magic, otherwise, his clear hazel eyes spoke of the man finally at peace. One quiet evening, Seraphina led Kaelen away from the war rooms and the political machinations. She took him to the high window, the highest, most secluded balcony of the palace, the very spot where she had first brought him to reveal the secrets of Aetheria. The view was breathtaking. The city glowed beneath them, the combined light of Aetheria's arcane lanterns and the softer human settlements nearby mixing harmoniously. Seraphina was no longer the desperate, beleaguered regent. She was the confident, compassionate queen. Her face was softer, the lines of worry replaced by the calm authority of a successful leader. She still wore her great black wings, but they no longer felt like the shackles of a curse. They felt like the symbol of her resilience and unique strength. They are repairing the Sunstone chamber, Seraphina said, leaning against the cold stone railing, her hand resting near Kaelen's. The magic is stable. Our people are safe. Your people, Seraphina, Kaelen corrected gently, taking her hand and lacing his fingers through hers. And mine. The line between them is almost invisible now. And that, my protector, is your doing, she said, turning to him fully. You showed them that power need not lead to destruction, and that difference does not mean destiny. She looked at him with an intensity that transcended their titles and their races. You risked everything to save my kingdom, Kaelen. But you also saved me. You broke the curse of my ancestors by showing me that trust and vulnerability are our greatest strengths. Kaelen smiled, the gesture genuine and unburdened. You gave me back my soul, Seraphina. You showed me that the monster was only a shadow, and that the man was still worth fighting for. He reached out and gently touched the base of her black wing, a gesture of reverence and acceptance. The wings are beautiful, Queen. They are no longer a curse but the proof of your survival. Seraphina's amber eyes shimmered with unshed tears, reflecting the city lights below. She had fought wars, faced betrayal, and carried the weight of a fallen empire. Yet, standing with Kaelen, she felt an overwhelming simplicity. Stay with me, Kaelen, she whispered, her voice a pure confession. Not just as my protector but as my anchor. As my king. Kaelen brought her hand to his lips, kissing the back of her glove, a final humble gesture from the warrior to the queen who redeemed him. My oath is eternal, Seraphina. My loyalty is absolute. The monster is gone. The king remains. They stood together at the high window, the human warrior and the vampire queen, the golden light of the new dawn beginning to break over the twin spire. The dark shadows of the past had receded, replaced by the brilliant, undeniable future they had fought for. Their love, forged in the betrayal of empires and the heat of magical war, was the very foundation of the new world.